Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for helping me. My name is Ryan Nima. Um, if you're meeting me for the first time, my name is Ryan Nima. Like I said, I'm a med student studying medical radiography. I'm in my third year, based in Nigeria. And apart from my medical studies, I'm also a proficient, top-rated medical content writer. And today, I have an amazing guest speaker all the way from England. Hey, Gina, could you introduce yourself to the audience?
Yeah, of course, can. Thank you. Thanks for having me, Ransom. So, my name's Ginagray, and I'm a directional coach from Bolton in England.
That was a short intro, Gina.
I can tell you some more if you want. I didn't want to. I didn't want to start by saying too much. What would you
You
like to know?
can explain further about you and the kind of work you do.
Amazing. So, yeah. So I'm 28. I live in Bolton. I've just set up my business as a directional coach for people who are looking to have a change in their lives or navigate some big decisions, ultimately deal with that whole process. So that's what I'm running my business in currently. I'm also still working full time, but only just. I'll be leaving my full time job in about 80 days. I think I've got a countdown on my phone. I've not checked for a few days though, so yeah. And then I'll be leaving my job as a construction site manager, which is what I'm employed full time with at the moment, to go full time with my own business. I'm really excited.
Thank you so much for that intro,
So
Gina. So we have some questions for you to answer. You ready?
yeah, of course.
All right. So if I'm looking downwards, I'm reading the questions to Gina. So you guys won't be wondering what am I looking downwards for. So the first question goes this way. Are you ready? Are you sure you're ready for that first
Well, I think
question?
so. I think I'm ready as I'll ever be.
All right. So okay. So let's go. How do you distinguish between healthy denial and negative tolerance when making the big changes in your life? So tell us.
So I think this can look quite different for each individual. First of all, I'd say generally as well, healthy denial will have a relatively short lifespan. I think denial is only healthy for a short period of time before it actually will become a problem. And then your sort of negative tolerance has a much longer lifespan. So let's say healthy denial, in my opinion, might be you've just started a new job maybe 2 months ago and you've maybe not fully settled in yet. So the healthy denial for me would be it's okay, it'll get better, and just kind of denying yourself the opportunity to walk away from it too early and sort of accept, it's probably just a settling in period. That's, I think, healthy denial are about as healthy as it can get. I think negative tolerance then comes when you've sort of accepted the fact that that state of denial is just the state you are in all the time, and that's it. And what you'll find is the healthy period disappears relatively quickly and it soon becomes something that actually you're just ignoring. And that might be when you feel like you're in too deep and maybe you've been at that job at that point for like a year. And then you're like, no, it's okay. I'm just getting on with it. And at that point, that's just negative tolerance. You're just putting up with it, basically. So yeah, that's what I think the difference is.
Hmm. I'm a bit curious about something you said. So, since there is a negative tolerance, is there a positive tolerance?
I don't know. It's a good question, to be honest. I think ultimately, if you're tolerating anything, you're not necessarily enjoying it. So I think healthy denial may also be your positive tolerance. I think that's probably the same thing. So you could maybe rephrase it from positive tolerance to negative tolerance, but I think it's the same thing as healthy denial. But I don't believe denial's healthy for long at all.
Hmm, hmm, hmm.
I
All
think
right.
it can stop you making some really rash decisions. As I said, if you're having a few bad days at work, then healthy denial might be, I know I don't need to act on this because I'm just having a few bad days, and deep down that you're having a few bad days. But then your negative tolerance might be, actually you feel really quite low and like the bad days are all the time, but you have a couple of good days and it's enough to keep you there. So that then for me is the negative tolerance, and that'll be the difference.
Absolutely. Wow, that was an amazing narrative you just shared there. Thank you so much, Gina, for sharing
Yeah.
that with us. Because when I was prepping this questions for you, because I was really, we the math students, you're always very curious about something. So I was like, healthy denials. I think this is my first time hearing such words because it sounds negative in my earring, like negative tolerance and healthy denials. It sounds negative in my ear, but now you've explained it, it's more, a little bit clearer to me. So
Yeah.
thank you so much for sharing that. So the second question goes this way. Are you ready for that second
Yeah.
question? All right. So can you share a personal experience or user story of someone who has been successful in their business or lifestyle from rejection to recognition? To tell us.
Yeah, so I think for me, I don't I don't really want to share anything too much about my clients. So I'm going to keep this one sort of more about myself and my own journey. And I'd say it's definitely more of a like an internal feeling rather than like an external achievement, so to speak. So I think when I first was embarking on my entrepreneurial journey and I was starting to think about doing this, I felt very judged. I felt very sort of held back by what other people were maybe thinking, saying. Just the response. If you say to someone, "Oh, I really want to start my own business," a lot of the time I'm like, "Really? Like, what doing?" And it takes away a little bit of that self belief, and I think a lot of people struggle to deal with that. But ultimately, unless you actually start dealing with those things and start speaking it out loud and start dealing with that kind of initial rejection, um, you don't really move past it. So I just kind of got really comfortable with, you know, I want to do something different to what other people want to do. And that's okay. They're going to have opinions about it because they don't have the same mind as me, that have the same feelings, the same goals. And that can be difficult for people to comprehend when you first start telling them these sort of things. So I felt quite judged for wanting to start my business. But then what I've found is, having done a fair bit of work on myself in that sort of space of understanding why other people's opinions are bothering me so much and that kind of thing, I've definitely moved into a place of recognition by people like yourself, by my other followers on LinkedIn, by friends, by family, colleagues, who have ultimately gone, "Oh, you know what? You're doing quite well." And now it's sort of reflecting in me, and I'm like, yeah, I do feel like I've got a place to sit and speak to you. I think if you'd have, excuse me, I think if you'd have reached out to me about 6 months ago, I would have said, no, I can't do this video, because I wouldn't have had the self-belief in what I was doing or the confidence for it to actually be out there to the world. But now I'm like, yeah, I've gone through the rejection phase of all the uncomfortable things of trying to start a business and trying to do something different to what people, like normal people, do. And I've just kind of moved into this place of, yeah, you know what, I'm being recognized for the positive start that I'm making. And what that's doing is it's inspiring more growth. It's making me want to do more things like this, and, you know, want to expand my my knowledge of the coaching industry and want to take on more clients. And so that's sort of my growth story. But it's not been comfortable, but it's definitely the sort of the path it's taken.
How does it feel to start up a business in your country, London? How does it feel to start up a business? For many people are gonna watch this video and looking forward to starting a business in England. So what are your advice for them, and how does it feel to start up your own personal business in your country?
Um, it's very empowering. I definitely feel very proud of myself for making the moves that I did. I will say that I definitely did a lot of research when I could have probably just been asking questions. I think it's really, really important early on to find the right people and get the right support. I definitely wasted a good 6 months trying to figure it all out myself, instead of identifying the areas that I needed help with and just finding somebody who could help with that. So that's definitely something that I've taken away from it. And yeah, it's felt a lot more possible as well than I think a lot of people initially believe it to be. So I was kind of like, I am never going to be able to set up a limited company. I'm never going to understand tax. I'm never going to understand this. I'm never going to understand it. But I think that's because people don't get taught about it. It's not encouraged like it is encouraged to get good education and go and get a job. And actually, there's a lot of information out there for people who do want to take that journey. So it feels good. It's worth doing, but it is difficult, and it's important not to get put off by the difficult bits.
Okay, so before I move to the third question, by the way, thank you so much for sharing your narrative in that question. Um, what you're doing right now, before I ask you the third question, what you're doing right now, is it acquainted to what you studied in the university?
No, not at all. So this is a big thing that I focus on in my coaching, is that people get very hung up on if they've not studied it, if they've not lived it, if they've not got experience in it, they just can't do it. And that is so wrong. So for me, I studied construction project management. I did that part-time with my company that I worked with as a site manager. So I did that for sort of 4 or 5 years. Did my degree part-time. Obviously, then I've moved into, I'm in a different construction company now for the last few months of my career in the industry. But ultimately, my natural ability and my skill and my experience lay very much in coaching. And it's something that I've done, I think, for many, many years without truly knowing that's what I was doing. Like, I've always been that friend who's been like, why do you feel like you can't achieve that? Like, go bigger. Like, there's so many possibilities, and, why are you holding yourself back so much? And I didn't realize that is coaching. It really, really is. It's just not linked to something that I've done at university, but it doesn't mean that I'm not capable and not the right person to help other people navigate that time period, because it is difficult sometimes when you think, well, I've not got a first class degree in this thing, so I can't do it. It's like, well, no, of course you can. There's so many opportunities in life that aren't things we can study at uni.
Absolutely. I do agree. Honestly, I do agree. So that brings me back to the third question. So, what are the problems people face when trying to meet demands for change in their work or private lives? So, tell us.
So I think for this one, I think it's really, really important to acknowledge that it will look slightly different for everyone. Like, the way I might struggle with managing change will be completely different to the way you struggle with it. And that's why people like myself as coaches, who are literally coaching in this sort of transitional period, is why it's so valuable. So I think meeting the demands for change can be really, really difficult if you're trying to change too much at once, or equally so if you're actually not trying to change enough. So let's say you change jobs, and that job requires you to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning and leave the office at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And that's a new schedule for you. If that's what's changed, it's not enough for you to just change that part of your life. You're going to need to change when you go to bed, when you wake up, maybe what time you eat. You're going to need to change maybe some of the routines that you have at home, like when you maybe do some chores, or maybe when you see friends, when you see friends or family. And that is sort of, it's facilitating the bigger change by also making little changes. And I think sometimes people resist that. So it actually becomes more difficult to implement the change they need to make, because they're trying so hard to keep everything else the same. The other side of that as well is trying to physically change too much. So again, let's say you have just got that new job. I'm just using jobs as an example because it's generally an easier, it's more tangible explanation. So let's say you have just got that new position and you do need to be up at 5 and leave at 3 or whatever. If you are then changing, you're doing a full change of your diet, you've got a new gym membership, trying to go to the gym 5 times a week, and you've never done that before in your life. You're trying to start running, you're trying to start going to a different part of town every day to go and see some new friends. That will become overwhelming really, really quickly, because you're trying to change too much. but that ultimately that lies within each individual's threshold. So that's sort of my take on it. I think we can resist too much of a change sometimes, which is what I sort of said initially, where one thing needs to change, so there's little changes we also need to make, and people resist that, or one thing needs to change, so everything kind of gets uprooted, and there's somewhere in the middle which is healthy.
Wait, hold on. I want to ask you a question. Someone making a change in their work and in their private life, does location really matter? Before I move to the fourth question, does location affect someone's work and personal experiences in life?
I think so. I think location definitely can. Do you mean in terms of like where you're brought up and where you live, or where you need to travel to and from? What do you mean? Sorry, what are you
Yeah,
saying?
like for instance, I'm Nigeria and you in London. So does the way you achieve things in London, is it, can I implement that to my country? Is there a big difference in it? And kind of location, the things you achieve in London, can I do it here in my country? Is it possible, regardless of the
Um,
location?
I think it depends. I think again it depends on individual circumstances. I just do want to correct you as well. Sorry, I'm in Bolton, not London. I'm about 3 hours up the country from London, so I'm really far away. I know very little about life in London too. Isn't somewhere I particularly want to live. So, um, yeah, I'm in Bolton, which is near Manchester. If you're familiar with Manchester, so I think the same principles apply. I think there's changes that you can maybe make in your life where you'd be at risk of changing too much or changing too little to support a change that needs to happen. But ultimately, the things that make up that change would be unique to where you are. So the commute for you might be different to the commute for me. So while there might be a change that happens, there'll be a uniqueness based on where people are and sort of the intricacies of that country and the habits of the people that live there. And so, yeah, I think the principles can be applied, but it will be unique very much to the location.
Okay, so if you've been to London before.
Yeah, I've been before, but I don't live anywhere near there.
Okay, so that draws me back to the fourth question. When a person is ready to make a change, to change the direction, what steps should be taken to move from acceptance to action? So tell us.
I love his question. I do want to say as well, actually, when I read your questions, I was like, wow, you've really, really done your research on me. So thank you. They're very, very good questions. So I think the first step in the whole process is acknowledgement. And that's something that I speak about quite a bit in a lot of my posts. If people have seen or do end up going to seeing some of our content, the first step is acknowledgement. That's always the hardest thing. It's really, really easy to just be blinkered to the fact that we're not happy and sort of keep your eyes down and not actually acknowledge what's going on around you. When you get to acceptance, this has the potential to drag on for a long, long time. So, you can ignore the fact that you're not very happy for quite a while. And then as soon as you accept it, that acceptance period can also go on for quite a while. And I think the things to consider when you're then stepping into the action phase is, first of all, how much dread do you feel when you consider that the condition that you're in and where you're at and what you do isn't going to change for the next 5 years? If that makes you feel like so full of dread, so full of anxiety, so full of disappointment, then something needs to happen. If you maybe look at it and think, oh, actually, if I'm still here in 5 years' time, it'll be okay. There's just maybe some small things want to change. Then your action's going to look maybe a little bit different to someone who's gone, I cannot be doing this in 5 years, which is very much how I was a few years ago. So I think the next thing to bear in mind is that the action step, I think, terrifies people because people kind of assume action means like everything happening. It means a lot of hard work. It means a lot of worry, a lot of big changes, when actually action starts really, really small. And it doesn't matter who you are. Genuinely, action will start from quite a small place, actually quite manageable. And I think people fear that action because they're anticipating, let's say your acceptance is, okay, I don't like my job. So their action period is, right, here's my notice. And they think that that's what needs to happen. And it isn't. So what could happen instead is maybe you've acknowledged the fact that you're not happy in a job. You've accepted that something needs to change. The action then that you take might just be updating your CV, or maybe it's reaching out to a friend who works in a different industry. Maybe it's looking at upskilling yourself, or taking a new part-time course, or something that can maybe make you more qualified to do something new. Maybe you've not looked at jobs within the industry you're in for many, many years. Or it can be the same with, friends or family, or like a personal change. Because I'm not a career coach, so I don't want to keep going back to jobs. But it's just a very easy thing for people to comprehend. So if it was something in like your personal life, you might say, okay, you know what? I've accepted the fact that this friendship or this relationship maybe isn't as good for me as it could be. The action period of that isn't just like, right, I'm going to cut you out of my life, I'm going to break up with you, I'm going to move out. The action period might just be, do we need to have a conversation? Do I need to maybe think about how I can make it better? Do we need to maybe spend a bit of time apart? Or, maybe we need to go and do something new and try something new. And it doesn't have to be this all or nothing action period. It can start quite small, and it should start quite small.
Absolutely, I do agree. By starting small, it mustn't be you must start big or something. So thank you so much for sharing that with us. And I believe that the audience, greatly adore you for that, narrative you shared. Thank you so much. So we have two more questions to go, Gina.
I know. Good questions. I actually have really enjoyed answering these.
Yeah, yeah. You know, I'm a great researcher. I'm a great writer. So it was literally, it
Really.
just was very easy for me to do. So, so that's it. So the fifth question goes this way: are there any warning signs that someone might object to a reasonable or a responsible ethical standards, or how can they be, resolved in changing, in terms of changing the directions and improving their lives? So what are your thoughts on that?
So I think the first warning sign, if you're like presented with a change, is probably fear. That's ultimately the first thing that tends to happen. Is, if someone's, let's say, if someone said, "Oh, we're bringing in a new technology that no one knows how to use, and it's going to change everything for us," and we go like, "Oh my god, like what does that mean?" And you start to get that fear of, maybe is my job safe, or am I going to still be relevant, or you start to maybe get that little bit of fear and panic. I think what follows that though is ultimately self-doubt. So you might have the initial fear if you're told a change needs to be made. That generally scares people because, as a generalization, and I know this doesn't apply to everyone, but people don't like change. I love it personally. I get really excited when there's something new happening. But for others, it's really uncomfortable. And that, I think, also stems from self-doubt, like someone who maybe knows they're really good at the job, or, they know that they're really liked locally. So actually the idea of moving away or doing something new at work or meeting new people, they're filled with that self-doubt that, well, I know I'm good, but only if things stay the same. So what if I can't do that? Like, what if I'm not good enough anymore? Or what if I'm not liked by these people? Or what if it's too much for me and I start to fail at something because it's changing? And a lot of that, I believe, comes from making early assumptions. So everyone's guilty of this in some way or shape or form. And it's really important to acknowledge that you're doing it. So early assumptions would be something like me saying to you, or somebody who maybe you work with or everyone needs to upskill and learn this new thing, learn this new technology, learn this new software. Early assumptions from yourself or from anyone might be like, I can't do that. I won't understand that. That's going to ruin everything, which kind of all links into the fear and self-doubt. But they come from having an early assumption that you won't be able to do something, or something's going to be wrong, or you might think, well, that's not going to be. I think I mentioned ethics before. Like, well, that's not going to be ethical. That's not going to be fair. That's not going to be whatever. We have a tendency to shut down things that make us feel uncomfortable, and you can do that by making an early assumption that it's maybe not going to be right. So that would be. I mean, that's a lot of what I do as well. It's helping people understand, okay, so you are panicked and riddled with self-doubt about this thing, but why are you? What's the root of that? And a lot of the time people will go, well, actually, it's because I'm maybe a bit insecure about my capabilities, or, I've had this hang up for years about my ability to, meet new people, and that's going to trigger that. And it's just kind of understanding what the underlying causes are that tend to sort of appear as warning signs. I hope I've answered that okay.
Absolutely, absolutely. I was grabbing something, and you talked about how to handle the latest advancements, and so I want to know something about you. The kind of work you do. You know, could you list the latest advancement or the latest technologies used in the kind of work you do?
So they're very much different between construction, which is my current career, and coaching, which is my current business. Obviously, I'll be moving away from construction full time very soon. So things like construction, a lot of it is technology based. We're looking at like offsite fabrication. That tends to worry some people in terms of jobs and manual labour. Then you get the skills shortage. And that's one whole thing. And then when you move into something like coaching, a lot of it is digital advancements, and I think AI has a lot to answer for. I personally, and this is probably my resistance to change, but AI terrifies me, which is probably a very old school way of thinking. But I really, really don't like the idea that I could reach out to a coach online or reach out to a business person and they could respond to me in purely AI. I don't like that. I want to know that I'm speaking to a person. But I do think, especially, I'm seeing a lot on like LinkedIn now because I'm on there predominantly. There's an option with LinkedIn Premium, I think it is. Not Prime, I was going to say Prime, that's Amazon. With LinkedIn Premium, where you can get AI to write you messages to people. And I don't like that personally. I want people to know that if they're contacting me, they are contacting me. But I do think AI is the biggest emerging technology in terms of the online coaching world, 100%.
Amazing. So we have the last question for you. How do you feel about the last question?
It's gone very fast. I'm excited. Yeah, I almost don't want it to be over. Have you got any more questions?
All right. So how can a person stay calm and motivated when starting to change their job and life? So tell us.
So I think similar to one of my earlier answers, this can really change depending on the individual. Like certain things that motivate you or motivate your friends and family might be a different motivator for myself. Same with things that maybe keep you calm and keep you feeling like you're in control of things. So I think ultimately to change whatever needs to change, and like similar to my previous answer, it's really important to understand that you can't do too much because nothing gets you sort of anxious or stressed or demotivated quicker than being overwhelmed does. So, if you have got a big change that you need to be calm and motivated for, trying to take on the world in one go will not keep you motivated. Even though you might feel like, oh, I need to do everything, actually all that's going to do is be quite counterproductive and probably make you feel like you can't actually achieve that change because you're trying to do too much. I think it was maybe question 3 it was similar to. I think as well, it's really important to have goals set out to know when you've kind of hit that milestone. So let's say, for me, I wanted to change the way I ran my business, or change something about my schedule that would make me healthier, or implement something new. It's important to have a goal you can actually reach to keep it clear in your mind why you are motivated to do that. So, if I said, I'm going to go and run a marathon tomorrow, that's never going to happen at all. But if I said, well, I'm going to train for a marathon, and I'm going to have a little win at every extra mile I can run, and I just need to keep running that one extra mile each time, that will keep you motivated because the goal is smaller and in reach. If you're ultimately going, and I did this a lot when I first started my business, like I need to do everything and then just did nothing because I was completely overwhelmed. I wasn't calm. I wasn't motivated. And when I was motivated, I would stop that motivation more or less immediately because I was like, I've got so much to do, I don't know where to start. So I think having broken down smaller goals will keep you motivated along the way. And that just sometimes takes a little bit of exploring before you actually take that on. I think the last thing too, just to sort of finish to round that question off, it's really, really important to look after sort of all three in terms of your mind, your body and your soul. So you might find that, you want to be calm and motivated to make a change, and you might be motivated, you might be absolutely, killing it, you're doing really, really well, but as a result of that, you started eating really badly, you've started sleeping poorly, you're not drinking enough water, you're not getting enough rest, you're not doing things that you enjoy anymore, so you start to feel a little bit disengaged and dissatisfied. The goals and the achievements that you're making will be short-lived if you're not looking after yourself and if you're not still having an element of fulfillment for your own sort of your own purpose. If you're focused solely on just hitting a goal or hitting some huge target, and you're not taking care of your body, you're not taking care of your sort of your soul, your purpose, and you're not taking care of your mind, if you've not got an element of all three, you will start to suffer, I think, in terms of your long-term success. So that would be my suggestion, would be look after your body and your mind and your soul, and make sure that you've got tangible goals on your journey.
Thank you so much, Gina, for
It's okay.
helping us as guest speaker and share your narratives. These are amazing narratives, and I believe that the audience learned one or two today. So before we wrap up the session, what are your last words for the audience?
Just I hope you take something away from that. I have a real passion for speaking to people who are stuck and who maybe feel like they're not capable of doing something new. People who are limiting themselves because of fear, maybe what other people think, or maybe what their own, they're capable of themselves. So if you've taken any encouragement away from this, then I'd love to hear from you. And yeah, you can obviously find me through Ransom, and yeah, everything's possible. You just need the right support.
All right. Thank you so much. So if you love this content, do it. So subscribe, like, and share to your network. Make sure you share to your network because I know someone in your network will definitely thank you for sharing the video to him or her. So thank you so much, Gina. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.